You join me here on the banks of the Forth Estuary in Scotland. We're on the north bank close to the port town of Rosyth and just along from the Queensferry crossing bridge. We're going to be walking along St Margaret's Marsh, then visit Rosyth Castle and the nearby Doocot. And on the way back we'll check out the abandoned Admiralty house and end with some views of the Forth bridges. We're starting here at a rocky outcrop called Ness, so come along and enjoy the walk. St Margaret's Marsh was designated a Site of Special Scientific Interest in 1996, as it's the largest reed bed in the Firth of Forth. However, prior to the 20th century, this area was an open water bay and home to many waterfowl. The decision to start work on a naval base at Rosyth meant big changes were about to happen to the bay. You can also see the Forth rail bridge in the background of this drawing, and also here is Rosyth Castle on a little island. We'll see how this has changed later on in this video. So back at St Margaret's Bay, it was decided to use it for tipping the dredged waste from the creation of the port, and so the area steadily changed into a marshland between the years 1905 to around 1945. By 1943 a seawall had also been built, mainly from the rubble of the first version of the port, evident today by the random concrete and brick shapes that make up this wall. By 1965, increasing fresh water in the area resulted in the salt marsh declining, and the reed beds started to dominate the area. But in 2014 and 2017, as part of the Queensferry crossing project, new saltwater channels were cut into the marsh to create a balance between reed beds and salt marsh, and new paths were created like the one we're walking today. We're now entering the industrial area of Rosyth Docklands, but looming into view in the distance is Rosyth Castle. As we saw in the earlier drawing, the castle was built on a small tidal island and dates from around 1450. It was built as a home for Sir David Stewart, Barony of Rosyth at the time. Later in 1572 it was attacked by forces from nearby Ness Castle, and then later occupied in 1651 by Oliver Cromwell's army after the Battle of Inverkeithing. It remained in Stuart ownership though through to the late 17th century, when it was sold to a David Drummond and then ultimately owned by the Earl of Hopetoun. By the 18th century onwards it remained unoccupied and fell into ruin. Many of the stones were used for other buildings, leaving only the tower and north courtyard wall remaining. Today it's landlocked and within the Dockyard perimeter, and it's only home to pigeons and seagulls. It's free to visit, but do check with the security guard office before entering. This is an industrial area after all. A short distance away from the castle you can find one of the many Dovecots, or Doocot, that you can find dotted across Scotland. They are so numerous because of an act that was passed in 1503 by King James IV that declared all landowners had to provide deer parks, orchards and Doocots to benefit the surrounding communities. This obviously meant many pigeon houses were built and there was an explosion in pigeon population. This caused many crops to be lost to the hungry birds. And so in 1617 a new act was passed, This time it restricted the building of Doocotts to only those landowners who could produce a certain level of grain within a 2-mile radius of the site. Hence the population of pigeons was controlled, but yet these small buildings still remain across the country. This one in Rosyth features a crumbling lintel stone into which is carved a serpent, apparently a depiction of the old biblical saying, "Be ye wise as serpents and harmless as doves." Once set in open grasslands, today the Rosyth Doocot is disappearing into the woods, into which we continue our walk. We've now jumped back close to Ness where we started, as we climb up St Margaret's Head. Here we're passing through the old gateposts of Admiralty House. This building dates back to 1829 and was originally called St Margaret's. In 1916 the building was extensively remodelled and extended in a neo-Georgian style, with the architect Ernest Newton working on the renovations. Incidentally, this is the only known example of his work in Scotland. During the First World War it was renamed Admiralty House when it became the residence of the Rosyth Naval Commander, and it remained the Admiral's residence through to 1916 when it was handed over to the Scottish Executive. Through neglect, the building fell into disrepair over the years. However, as you can see today, it's under repair and restoration with the intention of creating new office spaces. Just across the road, outside Admiralty House, this photo of the King and Queen was taken in 1945. In the background is an interesting standing stone, which remains to this day. On it is a plaque which reads, "Planted by H.I.M. the Shah, 7th of November 1919. I believe this may have been in reference to the Shah of Persia. Ahmad Shah Qajar visited the UK between 1919 and 1920. Could it have been he who planted something here? Maybe this tree? I'm not totally sure. But one thing I do know is that this is the Queensferry crossing bridge. And I'll leave you with some views of this and the older Forth Road Bridge as we conclude our walk into North Queensferry. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Bye for now.